The air was thick with the smell of roasted turkey and spiced pumpkin pie, typical of any family gathering. Laughter echoed in the cozy living room, where colorful decorations hung cheerfully from the ceiling. I stood in the middle of it all, clutching a framed family photo, my heart racing with a mix of excitement and anxiety. This was supposed to be a moment of togetherness, a celebration of our little family unit. Yet I could feel the tension brewing beneath the surface, particularly from Sarah, my partner's ex-wife, who was seated just a few feet away, her eyes darting between us like a hawk watching its prey. As I gathered my courage, I approached the group, my palms slightly sweaty against the cool glass of the frame. I could feel the warmth of the room contrasting with the chill creeping into my bones. "Look, everyone," I called out, trying to inject enthusiasm into my voice. "I wanted to share this special moment with you all." I smiled, but the corners of my mouth trembled as I spoke. The guests turned their heads toward me, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. And then, out of nowhere, my daughter piped up, her innocent voice slicing through the cheerful chatter like a knife. "Stepmom takes your place," her words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Silence enveloped the room and my heart sank. I felt the warmth drain from my cheeks, replaced by the heat of embarrassment. Laughter erupted awkwardly, but it felt more like a desperate attempt to lighten the mood than genuine amusement. I glanced at Sarah, whose eyes narrowed, and I could see the irritation flaring within her. In that moment, I realized that my efforts to create a happy family moment had backfired spectacularly. The laughter faded, but the tension remained, thick and palpable. I forced a smile, but inside I felt a whirlwind of emotions. Humiliation, dread, and a stark reminder of my insecurities as a stepmother. I could sense the cracks forming in our fragile family dynamic, and a gnawing fear gripped me. What had I done? The day was supposed to be a celebration, yet it felt like a catalyst for all the unresolved issues we had buried beneath the surface. As I stood there, I knew this was just the beginning of a long, painful journey toward understanding and healing, one that would challenge everything I thought I knew about love and family. The gathering felt like a delicate tapestry, each thread woven with laughter and smiles, yet I sensed the fraying edges of unspoken grievances lurking beneath the surface. I shifted my weight from one foot to the other, the cool wooden floor beneath me grounding my scattered thoughts as I leaned against the wall in the dimly lit corner of the living room. The chatter of family members blended into a comforting yet chaotic symphony, punctuated by the clinking of glasses and the occasional burst of laughter that felt hollow to my ears. "You okay?" Emily's voice broke through my reverie, pulling me back into the moment. She stood beside me, her brow furrowed with concern, her presence a balm against my mounting anxiety. I glanced over at Sarah, who was engaged in a conversation with my daughter, her laughter ringing out like a siren's call, beckoning me to confront my feelings. I sighed, my heart heavy with unexpressed emotions. I don't know how to navigate this. It feels like there's a wall between us and I can't break through it." Emily nodded, her expression empathetic. "You have every right to feel how you do. Just remember, you're not alone in this." As I watched Sarah interact with my daughter, I felt a familiar pang of inadequacy. Memories of past family gatherings flooded my mind, moments of laughter overshadowed by the lingering tension I couldn't quite articulate. I remembered the times I had tried to connect with Sarah, only to feel her cool demeanor pushing me away, like a door firmly shut in my face. The silence that followed Emily's words was heavy, filled with the weight of my unvoiced fears. I wanted to express my feelings, to confront Sarah about the chasm that had formed between us, yet the thought of her defensive reaction paralyzed me. What if I opened that door and found only hostility behind it? My fingers fidgeted with the edge of my sweater, the fabric soft yet constricting, much like my emotions. "Chloe," Sarah's voice sliced through my thoughts, and I straightened, caught off guard. She was looking in my direction, a hint of challenge in her gaze. I could feel the heat rising to my cheeks as I met her eyes, our silent exchange thick with tension. I steeled myself, recalling Emily's encouragement, but the fear of confrontation loomed large. In that moment, I was acutely aware of the fragility of our family dynamics. The laughter, the smiles, all were mere facades. I longed for resolution, yet every glance exchanged with Sarah felt like a reminder of my place in this tangled web of relationships. The air crackled with anticipation, and I realized that the buildup of emotions was leading me toward an inevitable confrontation, one that could either shatter our fragile peace or finally pave the way for healing. The tension hung in the air like a thick fog, suffocating and unyielding. I sat alone in the dimly lit corner of the living room, the remnants of the family dinner scattered around me. The clinking of forks and the muted conversations felt like a distant echo as I reflected on the evening's events, my mind racing with thoughts of inadequacy and frustration. The aroma of burnt garlic lingered, a stark contrast to the cheerful decorations that adorned the walls, mocking my turmoil. This was supposed to be a night of togetherness, yet I felt more isolated than ever, a ghost haunting a celebration meant for joy. As I stared into my half-empty glass of wine, the memories of the evening replayed in my head, each moment sharper than the last. Mark had tried to lighten the mood, cracking jokes that fell flat against the backdrop of my inner conflict. I could see the concern etched on his face as he glanced between Sarah and me, a silent plea for peace that felt futile. The way he shifted in his seat, hands fidgeting with the napkin, betrayed his discomfort. I wanted to reach out, to say something that would ease the tension, but the words were stuck in my throat, choked by fear and uncertainty. I recalled the moment when the atmosphere turned heavy, the air thick with unspoken grievances. Sarah's voice cut through my thoughts, sharp and defensive as she responded to a casual remark about family dynamics. "You don't understand what it's like, Chloe," she had snapped, her eyes blazing with a mix of protectiveness and anger. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, my heart pounding as I fought the urge to retaliate. I wanted to scream that I was doing my best to fit into this fractured family, yet the fear of escalating the conflict kept me silent, a prisoner of my own emotions. The evening had spiraled into awkward laughter and strained smiles, each forced interaction a reminder of the chasm that had formed between us. I felt the weight of Sarah's resentment like a heavy blanket, suffocating my attempts to bridge the gap. "I just want us to be a family," I had whispered, my voice barely above a murmur, yet it felt like a desperate plea lost in the chaos. The silence that followed was deafening, an acknowledgement of the rift that had deepened with each passing moment. I could see Mark's shoulders slump, his frustration palpable as he attempted to mediate, but it was clear that our words were falling on deaf ears. After dinner, as the guests began to disperse, I found myself retreating to the kitchen, the cool tiles grounding me in reality. I leaned against the countertop, the cool surface a stark contrast to the warmth of my emotions. My thoughts drifted to Emily, my closest confidant. I wished she were there, her unwavering support a balm for my wounded spirit. I could picture her now, sitting across from me with that knowing smile, urging me to speak my truth. But here I was, trapped in a cycle of hurt and disappointment, desperate for understanding yet afraid of the confrontation it might provoke. Mark appeared at the doorway, his expression a mix of concern and determination. "Chloe, can we talk?" he asked, his voice low and soothing. I nodded, the lump in my throat making it difficult to respond. He stepped closer, his presence a comforting reminder that I was not alone in this struggle. "I know things are tense, but we need to address this together," he urged, his eyes searching mine for reassurance. In that moment, I felt a flicker of hope, a small light in the darkness that had enveloped our family. But as I opened my mouth to speak, the weight of Sarah's anger loomed large, threatening to extinguish that flicker before it could ignite into something more. The uncertainty hung between us, thick as the fog that still clung to the air. I wanted to tell Mark everything, the hurt, the frustration, the sense of injustice I felt in my role as a stepmother. But how could I articulate those feelings without sounding like I was attacking Sarah? My heart raced, each beat echoing my internal struggle. I could see the weariness in Mark's eyes, and I knew he was caught in the crossfire of our conflicting emotions. Would he understand? Would he choose a side? All I could do was hope that he would see my truth, not just the turmoil that surrounded it. As I took a deep breath, the taste of stale wine lingered on my tongue, a bitter reminder of the evening's events. I steeled myself knowing that I had to speak up, to voice the injustices I felt. But as I opened my mouth, the door swung shut and the moment slipped away, leaving me with only the echoes of what could have been. My heart sank, heavy with the realization that this was just the beginning of a much longer journey toward understanding, one that would require vulnerability and courage, qualities that felt just out of reach. The family meeting loomed like a storm cloud over my head, heavy with unspoken words and unresolved tension. As I walked into the living room, the air felt electric with the anticipation of confrontation. The scent of freshly baked cookies filled the space, a deceptive comfort that did little to ease the churning in my stomach. I could see Sarah across the room, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, her expression a mix of defiance and apprehension. It was clear that this was going to be a difficult conversation, but I had reached my limit. "Can we just talk about what happened the other night?" I started, my voice shaking just a little. I felt the weight of everyone's eyes on me, a mix of curiosity and judgment swirling in the air. Sarah's gaze hardened, and I could see how her jaw tightened at my words. "I need to understand why you felt it was okay to make that comment in front of everyone." The room fell silent, the tension palpable. "I was just trying to lighten the mood," Sarah shot back defensively, her tone sharp like the edge of a knife. "I didn't mean to upset anyone." I could feel a burning sensation rising in my chest, a mix of hurt and betrayal. "It didn't feel light at all, Sarah. It felt like a reminder that I'm not really part of this family. It felt like you were declaring war." "War, really? You think I want to fight with you?" she replied, her voice rising. I could see her fingers twitching as if she was struggling to maintain her composure. The sight of her frustration mirrored my own, and I knew that we were both on the edge of a precipice. "You're not the only one who feels out of place, Chloe. You act like you're the only one who has it hard." "I'm just trying to protect my daughter," Her words struck deep, and I felt the sting of her accusations. The room seemed to shrink around us, the walls closing in with unyielding pressure. I took a deep breath, trying to ground myself, but the hurt felt like a tidal wave threatening to drown me. "I'm not trying to take her place, Sarah. I just want to be accepted." My voice wavered as I spoke, the vulnerability spilling over as I laid bare my emotions, raw and exposed. Sarah's expression softened for a brief moment before her defenses came crashing back down again. "You think I'm the problem here? You think it's all my fault?" she scoffed, shaking her head. It was as if she couldn't see the pain she had inflicted, the way her words had cut into the fragile fabric of our family. "Look, I'm not blaming you for everything, but you need to understand my side too," I pressed, desperation creeping into my tone. "We both want what's best for Emily, but we're not going to get anywhere if we keep throwing daggers at each other." My heart raced as I spoke, every word a step toward an emotional cliff I was terrified to plunge over. Silence enveloped us for a moment, heavy and thick, each of us waiting for the other to crack. I could see Emily watching us, her eyes wide with confusion, a frown creasing her young brow. Seeing her reminded me of why I was fighting so hard. I wanted her to know that love could conquer even the deepest divisions, if only we could find a way to bridge the gap between us. "Emily deserves better than this," I said softly, my voice barely above a whisper. In that instant, the dam broke. Sarah's defenses crumbled, and I saw tears glistening in her eyes. "I just don't want to lose her," she admitted, her voice trembling. The shared vulnerability hung in the air, a fragile truce that flickered like a candle in the wind. "I don't want to lose any of you." As our gazes locked, I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me. Maybe, just maybe, we could find a way through this darkness together. But the path ahead still felt uncertain, and I knew that we had a long way to go before we could truly heal the wounds that had been opened between us. The emotional weight of that realization sat heavily on my shoulders, but I was ready to confront it head-on, for the sake of our family's future. The atmosphere in my bedroom felt electric, charged with the weight of unspoken words and unresolved feelings. I sat at my desk, surrounded by scattered notes and crumpled paper, remnants of my attempts to articulate my thoughts. Each piece of paper bore witness to my struggle, the ink smudged from finger tremors as I fought against the tide of anxiety that threatened to swallow me whole. I took a deep breath, inhaling the faint scent of lavender from the candle flickering on the windowsill, a small comfort in the chaos of my mind. As I scribbled down my plan for the family meeting, I could almost hear Emily's encouraging words echoing in my ears. "You have to let them know how you feel, Chloe. It might be the only way to break this cycle of hurt." Her unwavering support had been a lifeline, but as I wrote, doubt crept in. What if my attempts at reconciliation only made things worse? I felt a knot in my stomach, a relentless reminder of the stakes involved. I had to bridge the gap between Clara and me, but the thought of facing Sarah filled me with trepidation. With each note I penned, I visualized the meeting, the tension in the air, the cautious expressions on their faces, and the potential for both healing and heartbreak. I imagined Clara sitting across from me, her eyes reflecting years of love and disappointment. Would she be willing to listen? The thought of her vulnerability made my heart ache, and I found myself wishing for the courage to express my feelings without fear of rejection. The day of the family meeting arrived, and I felt the weight of anticipation heavy on my shoulders. I dressed carefully, choosing a soft blue sweater that felt like a hug, hoping it might convey my desire for warmth and understanding. As I glanced in the mirror, I noticed the shadows under my eyes, remnants of sleepless nights filled with worry. I wanted to present a composed front, but the anxiety bubbled beneath the surface, a constant reminder of the fragile state of our family. In the living room, I arranged the chairs in a circle, a symbol of openness and equality. The sunlight poured in through the windows, casting a golden glow that contrasted sharply with the storm brewing in my heart. I took a moment to steady my breath, reminding myself of the importance of this gathering. I was determined to create a safe space for everyone to voice their feelings, even if that meant confronting uncomfortable truths. As I waited for Clara and Sarah to arrive, I replayed my words in my mind, hoping they would resonate with my family. When Clara stepped into the room, her expression was guarded, but I noticed a flicker of curiosity in her eyes. Sarah followed closely behind, her demeanor tense, as if bracing for an impending storm. I swallowed hard, my heart racing as I prepared to share my thoughts. This was not just about me. It was about mending the fractures within our family. I could feel the weight of their expectations pressing down on me, but I refused to let fear dictate my actions any longer. I had to speak my truth, no matter the outcome. The atmosphere in the living room was thick with unspoken tension, every corner of the room seeming to echo with our collective fears and frustrations. I glanced around at my family, the normally warm and inviting space now feeling like a pressure cooker ready to burst. The sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating the dust particles dancing in the air, but even that brightness felt dimmed by the weight of our emotions. My heart raced as I prepared to speak, my palms sweating slightly against the fabric of my jeans. Taking a deep breath, I stepped forward, feeling the eyes of my family on me, a mix of anticipation and apprehension reflecting back. "I need to say something," I began, my voice trembling slightly but steadying as I continued. "What happened at the party? It was a wake-up call for me. I've been so caught up in my own insecurities that I've neglected to see how my words and actions have hurt you all, especially you, Sarah." The silence was deafening, and I could see Sarah's expression shift from surprise to a guarded anger, her arms crossing tightly over her chest. "You think this is about you?" she shot back, her voice sharp. "You've made it clear time and again that you don't see me as part of this family, and the moment my daughter spoke those words, you acted like it was all a joke." Her words landed like blows, and I felt my throat tighten, the weight of her accusation pressing down on me. "I know I've made mistakes and I can't take back what happened," I replied, feeling a mix of desperation and determination. "But I want to try. I want us to heal and understand each other better. I'm tired of feeling like I'm on the outside looking in. This ends with me, and I refuse to let our family be torn apart by misunderstandings and hurt feelings any longer." My voice rose with passion, fueled by the fear of losing what little connection we had left. As I spoke, I could see the flicker of uncertainty in Sarah's eyes, the tightness of her posture softening just a little. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. The tension in the room shifted slightly as my family began to process my words, the storm of emotions swirling around us slowly beginning to calm. I could feel a glimmer of hope rising within me, that perhaps this moment could be the start of something new, a bridge built from honesty and vulnerability. In that charged silence, I realized that expressing my truth was not just a risk. It was a necessary step toward healing our fractured bonds. Sitting in the warmth of the family living room, where laughter once echoed, I felt an unexpected lightness wash over me. The tension that had clung to the air like a heavy fog seemed to lift, replaced by an atmosphere of tentative understanding. As I glanced around the room, I noticed Mark leaning against the wall, his eyes filled with a mixture of pride and concern. I could see the weight he had carried in trying to mediate between Sarah and me, and now, witnessing the fragile peace that was beginning to thaw, I felt a wave of gratitude for his unwavering support. The sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the space and casting gentle shadows that danced across the walls. I could smell the faint scent of freshly brewed coffee mingling with the lingering aroma of the dinner we had shared, a reminder of the shared moments that had brought us together. I took a deep breath, absorbing the warmth of the room, and for the first time in a long while I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me. The journey ahead would be challenging, but I was ready to embrace it. "Chloe, I'm proud of you for how you handled today," Mark said softly, his voice breaking through my reverie. I turned to him, the sincerity in his gaze reassuring. "You've taken a step toward healing, and that's huge." His words resonated within me, a reminder that change was possible, even when it felt daunting. I felt a smile tugging at my lips, a genuine expression of the relief that had begun to settle in my heart. I had spent too long dwelling on my insecurities and fears, allowing them to cloud my judgment. But now, as I sat surrounded by my family, I understood that the path to resolution would require openness, patience, and most importantly, love. With every conversation we had today, I realized that I needed to let go of the past to create a brighter future. As the evening unfolded, I found myself reflecting on the small victories we had achieved. It wasn't just about acknowledging the hurt, it was also about celebrating the moments of connection that had emerged from our discussions. I could envision a future where laughter filled the room again, where we could share our joys and sorrows without fear of judgment. The journey was just beginning, but now, I stood ready to face it with my family by my side. It was time to build a new foundation based on understanding and compassion, leaving behind the ghosts of my past insecurities. The living room felt almost sacred, bathed in the warm golden light of the setting sun filtering through the sheer curtains. The atmosphere buzzed with a mix of anticipation and anxiety as my family gathered for the final confrontation. I could smell the faint remnants of coffee mingling with the sweet scent of the cake left over from the gathering, a bittersweet reminder of the happiness we had once shared. My heart raced, each beat echoing the urgency of the moment, and I could feel the weight of my resolve pressing down on me like a heavy blanket. As I stood before my family, I caught sight of Clara, her eyes reflecting a mix of uncertainty and hope. This was it. I had to solidify our bond to show her that despite the chaos, I still believed in us. "Thank you all for being here today," I began, my voice steady but laced with emotion. I could see my father nodding in support, while my sister Emily offered me a reassuring smile from her place on the couch, her presence a comforting anchor amidst the rising tide of tension. "I know we've been through a lot, and I've made mistakes that hurt you all, especially you, Mom," I continued, the words tumbling out in a rush. I felt a tremor in my hands, a physical manifestation of the vulnerability I was laying bare. Memories of Clara's laughter, of us sharing secrets over cups of tea, flooded my mind. I had taken those moments for granted, and now, standing here, I feared I might lose them forever. Clara's gaze softened, and for a brief moment I glimpsed the flicker of the connection we once shared. I pressed on, determined to make her understand. I don't want to push you away anymore. I want to rebuild our relationship, piece by piece, even if it takes time. I am ready to listen, to learn, and to be the daughter you deserve. The silence that followed felt heavy, thick with unspoken emotions. I could see Clara's lips parting slightly, as if she were about to speak, but hesitation lingered in her expression. My heart raced, a surge of hope battling against the fear that she might still close off completely. Then in a soft voice she replied, "I want that too, Zoe, but it's going to take work from both of us." I felt a wave of relief wash over me, followed by a renewed determination. "Then let's work on it together. We've let so much time slip away, and I refuse to let fear dictate our future any longer. I love you, Mom. I want us to be a family again, a real family." As I spoke, I noticed Sarah watching us from the corner of the room, her expression a mixture of skepticism and hope. I met her gaze, willing her to see the sincerity in my words. This was not just about my relationship with Clara, it was about healing the fractures that had formed in our family as a whole. I wanted Sarah to know that I was ready to embrace her as well, to forge a new path where we could coexist peacefully. In that moment, Clara reached for my hand, her fingers warm and comforting. "Okay, let's take that step together," she said, her voice steady and filled with promise. I squeezed her hand tightly, feeling the warmth radiate between us, a silent agreement that we would navigate the complexities of our relationship side by side. As the conversation continued, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction welling up within me. Each acknowledgement of our past mistakes was a step toward healing. I could see Sarah's expression soften as Clara and I began to share stories of our favorite moments, laughter bubbling up like a long-buried treasure. The walls that had once felt insurmountable were slowly beginning to crumble, making way for hope and renewal. We ended the evening by taking a family photo, capturing the moment of our newfound connection. As the camera clicked, I smiled genuinely, the weight of the past lifting and making room for a brighter future. I was filled with hope, knowing that although the journey ahead would not be easy, we were finally on the same path together, ready to embrace whatever came next. This was just the beginning of our healing, and I was determined to cherish every step of the journey with my family. The sunlight filtered softly through the sheer curtains, casting a warm glow over the living room where the family had gathered. The air was filled with the sweet scent of baked goods, remnants of a successful baking session that had brought a sense of normalcy back into our lives. I could hear the gentle laughter of my daughter mingling with the low hum of conversation, a sound that resonated with the newfound harmony we were beginning to forge. It was a stark contrast to the tension that had once suffocated us, and I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me. As I settled into the familiar embrace of our shared space, I couldn't help but reflect on how far we had come. The conversations that had once felt like walking on eggshells were now filled with openness and honesty. Clara had been tentative at first, but with each passing day, she opened up more, allowing the walls she had built around her heart to crumble. I had seen glimpses of her vulnerability, moments where her laughter rang true instead of strained, and it filled me with hope. Sitting next to Sarah on the couch, I caught her eye and we exchanged a knowing smile. The animosity that had defined our relationship was slowly being replaced by a sense of camaraderie. We had shared our grievances, and while the road to forgiveness was still long, I could feel the weight of resentment lifting. "I appreciate you being willing to talk, Sarah," I said, my voice softer than before. She nodded, her expression genuine, and I could see the flicker of understanding in her gaze. The laughter of my daughter echoed through the room, a reminder of the joy that had been overshadowed for too long. Emily, my best friend, had been a steadfast supporter throughout this journey, encouraging me to confront my feelings and embrace the changes within my family. I could feel her presence beside me, her reassuring smile a beacon of strength. Together, we had navigated the complexities of our relationships, and I was beginning to see the beauty in our imperfections. As the afternoon slipped into evening, we gathered around the dining table, the centerpiece adorned with fresh flowers, a symbol of our rebirth as a family. "Let's make a toast," I suggested, my heart swelling with emotion. The clinking of glasses filled the air, a sound of unity that resonated deeply within me. "To family and new beginnings," I declared, my voice steady despite the tremor of vulnerability that lingered beneath the surface. The warmth of their smiles enveloped me, and in that moment I realized that we were not just surviving, we were thriving. In the days that followed, I found joy in the little moments, sharing laughter over breakfast, planning outings, and even the mundane tasks of daily life felt lighter. The tension that had once hung like a dark cloud began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of contentment that I had longed for. I often caught myself stealing glances at Clara, her laughter ringing like a melody that filled the spaces between us. I felt a renewed sense of purpose, a determination to nurture our relationships and keep the lines of communication open. Reflecting on our journey, I understood that it was not just about the reconciliation between Clara and me, but about the entire family.